The heavy steel door of the pressure chamber slammed shut behind me with a cold, piercing clang. The locking mechanism echoed through the narrow corridor like the tolling of my own death knell, through the thick blast-proof reinforced glass. Bayashin was clinging to Han Tianyu's arm. She wore the latest Chanel coat, a coquettish smile plastered on her face, a smile I had never seen before, and those very hands, barely half an hour ago, had been straightening my tie, telling me to wait for her return so we could put down the down payment on our first home together. Jiang Rui, don't blame me for being cruel. Bayashin's voice crackled through the speakers, laced with disdain and indifference. Tianyu can give me everything I want: sports cars, villas, social standing, and you, after 3 grueling years of hard work. The attribute you awakened is the utterly useless zero affinity. Staying with you, I'd never live a good life in this lifetime, beside her. Han Tianyu tightened his arm around her slender waist and laughed without restraint. His usually arrogant face was twisted with mockery, his gaze fixed on me like I was a lamb led to the slaughter. Jiang Rui, blame your own incompetence. Han Tianyu flicked his cigarette ash, looking down at me through the glass with contempt. This was supposed to be my assignment to special high-risk zone. Too bad the soul-devouring beast inside is too vicious. I wasn't about to take that risk. Luckily, Yashin suggested using you as the substitute. Once you're dead, everyone will just assume it was an accident. As for your little savings, Yashin has already transferred everything to my account. Consider it a wedding gift from you to us. My hands clenched into fists so tight that my nails pierced my palms, blood dripping between my fingers. 3 years. I'd scraped and saved, handed over every resource and every paycheck to her, sacrificed everything for her dreams, and in the end, she not only betrayed our marriage but conspired with her lover to orchestrate my murder. Bayashin, do you have no conscience at all? My voice cracked with rage, barely a rasp. When my mother was in the hospital, I went down on my knees begging for money. When you bought your bags and jewelry, I survived on plain bread for an entire month. And this is how you repay me. A flicker of disgust passed through Bayashin's eyes as she pressed herself even tighter against Han Tianyu. Don't make it sound so tragic. You're just a failure host to blame but yourself. 1 bag from Tianyu is worth 2 years of your salary. In this world where strength rules, the weak don't deserve love. Just stay in there and become that monster's meal. Han Tianyu sneered and pressed the gate release button. Get in there. You waste. Hope you last a few minutes, at least give Yashin and me some entertainment. The massive steel gate groaned upward, revealing the pitch black, blood-scented dead zone beyond. A ferocious pressure surged from the darkness, enough to tear an ordinary person apart in an Instantaga-level danger zone. An irresistible force shoved me forward into the darkness. The gate slammed shut behind me, cutting off all escape. Silence engulfed me, broken only by my ragged breathing and the pounding of my heart. Deep in the shadows, 2 green eyes flared to life, accompanied by a bone-chilling growl. An immense, suffocating pressure descended upon me, the most dangerous monster of all the soul-devouring beasts. I pressed my back against the cold wall, gasping for air, hatred blazing like an inferno in my chest. I wouldn't accept this. Why should those 2 bastards trample over my corpse and live in luxury? Why should I die like vermin in this godforsaken pit? The beast's massive form emerged from the shadows, its claws scraping sparks against the floor. It opened its maw wide and let out a deafening roar, a cataclysmic psychic storm of annihilation hurtling straight toward me. In that moment, my heart nearly stopped. The shadow of death wrapped around me completely. But just as that devastating psychic blast enough to instantly kill a high-level warrior crashed into me, a strange notification pinged deep within my mind. No damage occurred. That world-shattering attack, upon contact with my body, simply dissipated into nothingness. I froze. The beast seemed confused too. Its enormous green eyes flickered with uncertainty. Then it roared again in fury, unleashing wave after wave of destruction upon me. Yet no matter how violent its assault, the energy vanished upon touching me, like drops of water absorbed into the ocean. In my mind, the mechanical system prompt flickered rapidly. Detected extremely rare mechanism collision. Target destruction, energy type identified as spiritual annihilation. Host's inherent attribute 0 affinity classifies this energy as absolutely invalid value. Due to system logic constraints, monster attack enters dead loop conflict, triggering invincibility protection. Simultaneously detected. Monster is in post-attack cooldown stagnation, attack window confirmed. I stared at my unscathed palms. Then at the massive beast paralyzed by its own cooldown mechanic. My zero affinity, the trash attribute that Bayashin and Han Tianyu had mocked as utterly useless, incapable of even sensing the faintest elemental energy, had, in this supreme danger zone, perfectly exploited a fatal flaw in the monster's core mechanics. All of its devastating skills dealt zero damage to me, and right now, locked in its post-skill cooldown, it lay before me like a giant wooden puppet, completely defenseless. My breathing quickened. My frozen heart reignited with blazing intensity. I looked at this god-level monstera creature worth a fortune, covered in legendary materials, yet utterly immobile, and thought of the smug pair outside, waiting to watch me die. A cold, sharp smile curled across my lips. Han Tianyu, Bayashin, you threw me in here, hoping to see me devoured, but you never imagined what kind of colossal fortune you've just handed me. I drew the ordinary short blade at my waist and strode toward the helpless beast. The steel glinted in the dim light. I stood before the soul-devouring Biasta creature capable of crushing an entire defense squad, now frozen stiff by its own mechanic loop. Its massive green eyes stared at me in sheer terror and disbelief. Not so fierce now. Are you? I sneered, gripped my blade with both hands, and plunged it into the soft scale gap at the corner of its eye. Crunch! Black blood sprayed across my face. Scalding hot. The beast convulsed violently, but, locked in its cooldown, couldn't even lift a claw to fight back. This wasn't a battle, it was a one-sided slaughter. I showed no mercy. My blade became a blur, stabbing relentlessly into its vitals. With every strike, crisp prompts rang in my mind as damage accumulated. Minutes later, the legendary monster that terrorized the entire wasteland let out a final, reluctant wail and crashed to the ground. In the next instant, a blinding golden light exploded. The beast's colossal corpse dissolved into countless particles of light, replaced by a field of equipment and materials pulsing with staggering energy. Congratulations on slaying the god-level monster soul-devouring beast. Gain massive cultivation experience. Congratulations on obtaining special attribute potion. Strength permanently increased by 50 points. Agility permanently increased by 50 points. Congratulations on obtaining top-tier battle pet egg. Unhatched sacred dragon species. A cascade of prompts detonated in my mind. Torrential energy surged into my limbs and meridians. My once weak frame was flooded like magma into a volcano. Bones cracked and reformed. Muscles and sinews reforged at a furious pace. The sensation of power flooding through me nearly made me howl with exhilaration. In a single kill, I'd leap from the lowest mortal tier to heights that would take ordinary cultivators decades to reach. I bent down, picked up the rainbow-glowing potion, and downed it without hesitation. The liquid dissolved on my tongue, spreading warm power through my entire body. I could feel my perception, explosive force, and reaction speed multiply in an instant. This wasn't a death trap, it was a treasure vault tailor-made for me. I looked at the loot scattered across the ground, a cold smile playing on my lips. Bayashin and Han Tianyu never imagined that the waste they'd crushed underfoot wouldn't become monster chow, but would instead ride this hidden system loophole straight to invincibility. Then, from deeper within the danger zone, more roars erupted. A dozen green lights flickered in the black mist, more soul-devouring beasts. This zone's danger level was extreme. Monsters respawning constantly. For ordinary people, it was a nightmare. For me, it was paradise. Come on, then. I gripped a newly dropped legendary short blade, my eyes blazing with fervor and bloodlust. Not a trace of fear. The roaring beast charged at me like black lightning bolts, psychic storms threatening to tear the space apart. Yet every devastating force that struck me vanished into nothing. The invincibility bug triggered instantly. Every monster locked up in cooldown paralysis. I blurred into motion, charging straight into the horde, glinting steel, spraying black blood. The unending chime of rewards became the only rhythm in the silent dead zone. Bayashin, Han Tianyu, and everyone who once treated me like an ant to be crushed. Just you wait. When I walk out of here, the reckoning will come. The once terrifying roars of the dead zone gradually turned into desperate whimpers. My legendary short blade became an invisible streak of lightning, slicing precisely through the horde. Every flash of steel drew a spray of black blood, followed by another massive beast crashing to the ground. Relying on zero affinity, that perfect exploit of the system's underlying logic, these god-level monsters, capable of leveling cities in the eyes of outsiders, were nothing more than ripe wheat before me, ready for harvest. Congratulations on slaying god-level monster soul-devouring beast. Gain massive cultivation experience. Notification. Breakthrough achieved. Current realm. High-level war general. Congratulations on slaying god-level monster soul-devouring beast. Gain massive cultivation experience. Notification. Breakthrough achieved. Current realm. Special level war god. Torrents of power like an endless ocean crashed and fused within me. My bones rumbled like thunder. My once fragile meridians tempered into hundred-forged steel. A faint golden glow emanating from my flesh. The sheer ecstasy of exponential power growth was intoxicating. An hour ago, I was a worthless loser tossed into a death trap by my ex-wife and her lover, begging for scraps of medicine money. Now, in less than half an hour, the power I'd accumulated was enough to make the city's elite tremble. I didn't even need fancy techniques. A simple horizontal slash sent a blade aura ripping through the air, tearing tiny cracks in space itself, and cleanly bisecting the paralyzed monsters before me. Loot orbs burst forth like rain, multicolored light illuminating the gloom like daylight. High-grade attribute potions went down like water, one after another. Strength increased by 100 points. Agility increased by 100 points. Mental resistance increased by 100 points. My once thin frame, worn from overtime and malnutrition, transformed under these supreme resources lean, powerful, explosive, my eyes sharp as a hawk's, each breath carrying a faint rumble of thunder. By Yashin. You said I was poor and useless. You said I'd only hold you back. I drove my blade through the last beast's throat, yanked it free, and wiped the blood from my face. You sold yourself for a villa and a few cars. You thought following Han Qianyu was climbing the ladder. You thought he could give you the status and power you craved. Too bad. You have no idea what you've thrown away. Silence returned, broken only by my steady, deep breathing. The ground was littered with mountains of legendary materials and countless top-tier resources. The monster's respawn rate was slowing. I'd nearly cleared this entire sector using this absurd exploit. I felt the boundless, raging river of power within me and clenched my fist. The air in my palm imploded with a sharp crack. Teak's special level war god. In this age where strength reigns supreme, a warrior at this level would be revered as an ancestor in any top aristocratic family, and Han Tianyu's Han family, before a true war god. They were nothing but ants to be crushed underfoot. The harvest continued. My gaze turned deeper into the mist, where an even more ferocious aura pulsed. Stronger monsters, greater rewards. Since fate had handed me this game-breaking loophole, I would forge an unshakable legend in this very wasteland, and when I finally burst through those doors, everyone who wronged me would pay in blood and despair. The crimson glow in the deep mist grew fiercer. A beast the size of a small mountain, a soul-devouring beast king, stood before me, covered in jet-black armor, a terrifying rainbow crystal gleaming on its forehead. Its aura surpassed the sum of all the ordinary beasts I'd slain. Any outside enforcement team would flee in terror at the mere sight of it. But to me, it was just a mobile legendary vault. Its deafening roar unleashed a cataclysmic storm that could shatter a high-level warrior's mind. And yet, the moment that apocalyptic force struck me, it vanished like water into sand. My zero affinity triggered the dead loop exploit once again, nullifying the Beast King's attack completely. The cooldown paralysis locked in. The mountain's eyes beast froze, terror flickering in its massive eyes. Forced to watch helplessly as I approached, I launched myself into the air like a shooting star, my legendary blade becoming a hail of flashing light, raining down on the rainbow crystal atop its skull. Crack! With a crisp, shattering sound, the Beast King let out a desperate wail and crashed to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. The next instant, the entire space blazed brighter than daylight. Congratulations on slaying the soul-devouring Beast King. Obtained supreme-level rewards. Obtained legendary divine armor. Imperishable holy armor auto-blocks fatal damage. 100 damage reflection. Obtained top-tier divine weapon. Sky-severing warblade cuts through iron like mud. Ignores defense. Obtained supreme wealth card. Contains 10 billion funds. Unlimited credit. A cascade of radiant loot engulfed me. I reached out, and the imperishable holy armor dissolved into golden streams that wrapped perfectly around my body before fading beneath my skin, leaving faint golden patterns that shimmered briefly. The moment I grasped the sky-severing warblade, a world-rending edge shot toward the heavens. I could feel the very fabric of space quivering before its blade, and that supreme wealth card settled into my palm. 10 billion funds. Bayashin had abandoned me for a few million in down payment. For designer bags worth a few 100,000. She thought Han Tianyu was her sky, that the Han family was an insurmountable mountain. She never imagined that one card in my hand could buy out the entire Han family empire. I adjusted my magnificent battle robe, sheathed the sky-severing war blade, and felt the godlike power thrumming within me. I was no longer the fated, threadbare pauper, nor the helpless victim. Time to end this. I turned my cold gaze toward the steel gate I'd entered through. By now, Yashin and Han Tianyu were probably rushing to collect my remains and legally divvy up my last savings. Weren't they? They wanted to see my mangled corpse, to feast on my despair and glorify their triumph. Well then, I'd give them exactly what they wanted, a surprise they'd never forget. With steady steps, draped in full divine gear and burning with icy killing intent, I strode toward the exit of the danger zone. Outside the pressure chamber's steel door, faint voices drifted in, along with the click of high heels on concrete. Tianyu? Do you think that loser's been torn to shreds by now? Yashin's sugary voice seeped through the crack, dripping with smug satisfaction. Just the sight of his face makes me sick. He actually had the nerve to threaten me with the marriage down payment. Serves him right. Relax, babe. Han Tianyu's arrogant laugh followed. That's the highest level death zone in there. Even a fully equipped elite squad wouldn't last half an hour, let alone a waste who can't even sense basic attributes. He's probably not even bone fragments by now. With a crisp mechanical click, the heavy steel gate began to rise. Harsh sunlight poured through the widening gap, illuminating the two smug, greedy faces outside. Yashin wore an elegant red dress, clutching a designer handbag Han Tianyu had given her, pressed against him with a victor's smirk. Han Tianyu puffed on a cigar, aloof and disdainful, gazing upon what he assumed was a corpse. They held a stack of equity and asset transfer agreements ready to finalize the paperwork as soon as my death was confirmed, to drain every last drop of value from my life. But when the gate fully opened, their laughter died in their throats. No blood-soaked carnage, no rotting stench of monster saliva. I stood there, whole and unharmed, in the boundary between shadow and light. My battle robe gleamed with flowing gold, my gaze cold as frozen steel. Wow! Yashin jolted as if struck by lightning. Her designer bag slipped from her fingers and clattered to the ground. Her eyes bulged, her trembling finger pointing at me. Jiang Rui, how are you still alive? Why don't you have a single scratch? Han Tianyu's cigar dropped from his lips. His arrogance froze, replaced by utter shock and disbelief. He stumbled backward 2 steps, staring at me like I was a ghost. No, impossible. Absolutely impossible. What about the monster in there? How did you walk out of that? Sorry to disappoint you, Han. I stepped out of the pressure chamber, each footfall heavy and resonant. The lethal aura I'd accumulated from slaughtering countless god-level monsters radiated outward with every step. The monster you threw me in to die to. I killed it. Easily. Yashin shrieked. Liar. You're lying. Jiang Rui. You're a worthless waste who can't even sense elemental energy. How could you possibly kill a god-level beast? Tianyu? He's bluffing. He must have just cowered by the door and got lucky. Bluffing. I curled my lips into a mocking smile, looking at them like the pathetic clowns they were. Han Tianyu steadied himself at her words, but his eyes remained locked on my golden shimmering battle robe, a flicker of unease crossing his face. Jiang Rui, what are you wearing? And what happened inside? You'd better come clean. Since when do I owe you answers? I stared coldly at him. Han Tianyu, you stole my wife, plotted to take my assets, and threw me into a death trap. Don't you think we have a score to settle? Yashin, seeing my cold demeanor, flew into a rage. Jiang Rui, who do you think you are, settling scores with Tianyu? You're just a broke loser I dumped. So you survived, big deal. Tianyu could crush you with a fraction of his resources. She clung tighter to Han Tianyu's arm, trying to draw confidence from him, but her trembling legs betrayed her fear. Settle scores. Han Tianyu's eyes hardened, shock giving way to cruelty. So you got lucky and lived. Jiang Rui, so what? You're on my turf. I threw you in once, I can kill you with my own hands a second time. A garbage attribute waste like you dares to challenge me. Watching this clueless pair, I rested my hand lightly on the sky-severing war blade, its space-rending edge humming at my touch. Is that so? Try me. Han Tianyu threw his head back and laughed as if I'd told the funniest joke. Try you? Jiang Rui. You think throwing on some rags you scavenge makes you some kind of big shot against real power and status? You're just a bug I can squash anytime. Yashin chimed in. her panic buried under venom. Jiang Rui, take a good look in the mirror. Jianyu is the young master of the Han family, has endless resources. You can't even afford decent gear. Get on your knees. Apologize to Jianyu. Hand over whatever junk you picked up in there. And maybe he'll let you crawl away alive. Hand them over. I laughed coldly, reached into my robes, and flicked the obsidian and gold supreme wealth card straight at Bai Yashin's face. Smack! The hard card struck her powder-caked cheek, leaving a livid red mark before spinning to the floor. You hit me! Bai Yashin shrieked, clutching her face, but when her eyes dropped to the card at her feet, her voice died in her throat. That was a supreme black gold card, an honor reserved only for the most exalted high-level elites across the Federation. It represented at least 10 billion in liquid assets and unlimited privileges. Han Tianyu's eyes went wide, his pupils constricting violently. As the young master of the Han family, he'd only ever seen such a card once from afar when his father had kowtowed before some ancient noble clan's patriarch. No, that's impossible. How could you have that? It's fake. It has to be fake. Han Tianyu's voice cracked, panic bleeding through. Fake. I couldn't even be bothered to explain. I drew the sky-severing war blade. Swing! A crisp blaze song cracked through the narrow corridor like thunder. The devastating edge pressure exploded outward, sending spiderweb cracks racing across the half-meter-thick blast-proof steel plates. The suffocating divine pressure drove Han Tianyu and Bai Yashin to their knees with a simultaneous thump. God-level equipment. Han Tianyu's face went ashen, cold sweat pouring down his forehead like rain. He knew quality when he saw it. The pressure. The edge. This was undeniably a supreme divine weapon. Even if his entire family sold everything they owned, they couldn't afford a single engraving on that blade. Bai Yashin was completely petrified. She stared at me with wide, disbelieving eyes at the golden dragon pattern shimmering across my battle robe, at the divine blade that seemed capable of splitting the sky itself, at the 10 billion card lying on the ground. She had thought abandoning her poor husband for Han Tianyu was the pinnacle of her life. But now, everything I casually revealed shattered her precious Han family nobility into dust. Jiang Rui, Bai Yashin's lips quivered, her viciousness instantly replaced by sycophantic regret. She crawled forward, ignoring the pain in her face, trying to grab my pant leg. Jiang Rui, I was wrong. I was blind. Han Tianyu tricked me. I still love you. What about our 3 years together? Didn't you remember? Forgive me. I'll cut him off right now. I'll come back to you. I'll serve you like a slave. Get lost. I raised my foot and stomped down on her hand, applying pressure. Bai Yashin let out an agonized shriek, writhing in pain. Bai Yashin, 3 years ago. One bag cost me half a year's savings. I starved and slaved to provide for you, and you called me a loser. I looked down at her, nothing but disgust and contempt in my gaze. Half an hour ago, you personally shoved your husband into a death trap. Where was your 3 years then? To you, money and status are everything. Too bad the high branch you fought so hard to climb. In my eyes, it's worth less than dirt. Han Tianyu knelt, ashen-faced, teeth chattering. Jiang Rui, what? What kind of opportunity did you find in there? You can't kill me. I am the eldest son of the Han family. My father is the Han family. I cut him off with a cold laugh. Very soon, there won't be a Han family left in this world.